For Centauri, I'm anticipating some action. It's turn 100, been isolated a long time. It's time to break out and find some adventure. Let's have a look around. 36 energy a year at turn 100 is not anything amazing, but this isn't an energy oriented faction in particular, or an energy oriented strategy. List of projects. What are our cities doing? We aren't building any special projects, which makes things a bit samey in the manufacturing department, but it makes the game much harder. It denies me all sorts of nice toys and hands them over to my enemies, so it's an effective way to add difficulty, and it's a vaguely useful way to add difficulty, because there's always the possibility in any game that you'll be denied your favourite toy, your favourite of the secret projects, SMAC's version of Wonders. So if some other AI gets it first, or a human player gets it first, it messes up your plans. You've got to be able to soldier on without the specific secret project that you love the best. So, Yang crushing the faction dominance. I think I'm as good as second position though. And I should be in a part of the game where I can overtake these guys now. Where am I? Sister Miriam for wealth. That's no great claim to fame. But my grid's getting established. I'm swarming with a good supply of probe teams. Wealth and a supply of probe teams. And a good probe score is a pretty solid defense. Anyone who turns up... Oh, hello. Yes. Take a bribe from Deirdre. That annoys Yang a bit. But why not take her cash and put her in charge instead of main man Yang? And now I've got everyone's frequency. He's got a little grudge against me for some minor voting issue there. Zach's always good for some new toys. Everybody gets a phone call. Yes. Santiago, you have to expect to be a bit angry. Sakharov's very cautious of my particular faction. Yang's the big man, or thinks he is, so he's posturing and saber rattling at the moment.
There are two kinds of
Oh,
scientific progress.
bribery for a new
Methodical
weapon.
experimentation and
Why not? I've
technologization
got
which
the cash.
gradually extend the boundaries of knowledge,
Hmm.
and the revolutionary leap of Jeeves, which redefines and
Everyone else has level
transcends
4
boundaries,
weapons. I
acknowledging
just
every
bribed my
objective
way.
form.
He held his arm too stiffly,
Huh.
and so was thrown back repeatedly, until at
Well,
last I
this
seized his
is
forearm and snapped it back against
all
itself.
those missing
His
researchers
training suffered while the arm
I
healed,
missed
of
out
course,
on for being a
but I
Miriam
felt this was a lesson he must
can now
learn
catch
early
up on
and well.
now that I have some friendly
Smarting
friends
care,
to annoy.
honing the key.
It's just not the same being Miriam without some friends to annoy. Mobility is tanks.
Once a man has changed
Mobility
the
is good.
relationship between himself and his environment,
Impactor
he cannot
tanks.
return to the blissful ignorance he knew.
Impactor tanks are nothing to
The
sneeze at.
notion of necessity involves a change in perspective. Commissioner Pravin Lal, A Social History of Planet.
It's always nice to have a few new toys. Boats, cars, and a big gun. It's exactly the kind of tech trading I like to get done. This changes things. So we now have tank chassis and boat chassis. So we've got a tank factory. Control H. Relocate. Everything that comes out of a factory needs to be relocated, needs to be supported from somewhere that isn't the factory that built it. In order to get that done, I like them to have Control H in their name. That way if I'm looking at them, wondering what to do with them, I look at them and go, oh, I see the word Control H. That means I need to move them to a city and press Control H, and that will take care of that problem. Now in a PvP game, writing Control H on a city would be painting a bullseye on its face. It's kind of giving away that that's a factory that pumps out a bunch of stuff. If you've got nasty humans gunning for you, you can use a code. You can have a few useless cities that maybe have similar codes. Try and throw them off. It's a much trickier business dealing with a human intelligence. Fortunately, the AI will completely overlook what I name my cities. So my tank factory and my headquarters are both inland within reason. They're not on the coast at any rate. HQ is thoroughly inland. My tank factory isn't on the coast, but it doesn't have another city shielding it from the coast. A nuke could just sail in and take it out, but I can cover the coast in units. Have a nuke crumple zone on the coast.
Alright.
So I've got a big red island that needs to be turned green, and everyone needs to get on board with that.
In the
Anyone
borehole
who
portion
isn't
of
is
Mars, 100
stapled
kilometers beneath
hello.
planet's surface,
Come
at the
to
moment of heat
daddy.
discontinuity when crust gives way to mantle,
Supply
temperatures of the max
crawlers.
levels well in excess of 1000 degrees Celsius. Exploitation of planet's resources under
Now if
such
I
lethal
wanted to be
conditions has
completely and
required countless
entirely fair
advances
to
in
this
robotic and
obnoxious AI
teleoperational
that I'm
technology.
playing against,
Morgan
which
Industries
I don't,
Limited, Annual Report.
I wouldn't use too much in the way of supply crawlers, because they don't use them terribly well. So I could be merciful and not use them either, but this is a pretend PvP game. This is a game in which I'm treating the computer AI more or less like I would a human. I'm much more relaxed. I'm nowhere near as paranoid. Not patrolling everywhere, investigating everywhere, in paranoia like I would be against human players, but my overall strategic decisions, my overall strategy, everything's laid out the way I'd lay it out in a PvP game, and I'm going to use a lot of supply crawlers, much like I would in a PvP game, knowing that my enemies will certainly do the same. Hence the fact that I haven't just been planting forest, I've also been building some mines with some roads. Not that I'll be able to take full advantage of that, but eventually a mine and a road will give me 4 minerals. And my trees will only give me 2. At the moment everything just gives me 2. That's alright. Prepping. I'm a prepper. Taking a leaf out of the Spartan's book and doing some serious survivalist prepping. So I'm starting to get a perimeter of cycle guys guarding my coastline, making it difficult to disgorge troops or worms, and creating zones of control if they do, preventing any breakouts and problems from occurring. 722 cash, plenty of bribing cash. Got a powerful bribe defense ready and waiting for any would-be invader at this point.
Production complete. Production complete.
And I've just invented military, as in I've actually got tanks and boats and things made out of metal instead of just brave cannon fodder. Brave cannon fodder with the Lord in their hearts. That's what I've been relying on up till now.
Improvement already exists.
So, mines and forests, that's all a farmer's life is. Occasional fungus removal, obviously. But at least my cities have diversified, they're no longer completely fixated with producing colony pods and scouts. Massive cycle manufacturing afoot. I'll have dozens of those. This is the era for making probe teams.
Project initiated. Production
Later on there'll be lots of wondrous things that I'll want, and I won't be so inclined to make a probe team. Whereas now, what have I got to make? Colony pods, probe teams, and probe boats, of course. Probe boats are a glorious thing. I'd prefer to be on an interconnected landmass with some bottlenecks and some wide open areas and some interesting terrain. Makes life interesting, I like that, but if I'm stuck on an decent sized island, I can easily make do by using boat probe teams
Production complete.
to visit my neighbours.
Terraform complete.
And I've traded enough tech to get that going. So they basically traded me the tech I needed to really, really annoy them. That's the sad reality for them. So we continue the 3 core rows of the grid downwards. Long may the grid live. All praise to the grid. Preparing the way down here, I've got little bits of road dotted so that when the cities drop in between them, they'll be pre-connected, ready to roll out. More stapling, more silly people who don't understand the importance of what we're doing here and its greater good for the whole of Alpha Centauri. So the great dunes are starting to look a little less dune-like, and to cover them in forest. Like the eco-warrior that I am, look at all that forest. I'm practically like an elf. My ears may as well be pointy. I've got pointy cities living in forest, shoving pointy things into people. I might as well be elves. Hugging trees that badly. Despite my little planet penalty,
Request
which is a mere trifle. Planet penalty's nothing. I grow so much forest that the planet loves me. I have barely any worm issues. We're on average worms. I could definitely kick it up to abundant worms to annoy myself as a Miriam player more. But that would just tempt me to go green, get a worm controlling advantage and then try and turn it around. Overall I think it's a disadvantage. But this particular game was set up to be as much like a multiplayer game, as much like a PvP game as possible. And that meant lots and lots of average. Because there's always lots of people arguing for more of this or more of that. And usually the only way to shut everyone up is everything's just going to be super average and we'll see what we get. But I'm happy to do some abundant worms with Miriam. Definitely think of that as a disadvantage. It's a bonus if you're Guy, and for everyone else it's at least a small disadvantage, I think. But worms aren't a huge issue. Forests mean the planet loves me, and I've got my anti-worm troops. See, if I was building secret projects, what would I build? The neural amplifier, I believe, is a good one. 50% extra side defense for all these Psycore guys. That actually makes them genuinely tough and a genuine abuser of worms when on the defense. As it is, when I'm in fundamentalist mode, It's the equivalent of having lots of veteran troops littered for free all over my countryside. Great web suppression. But with the neural amplifier, then they're not as tough as a demon boil. They're in second place after a demon boil, even on the defensive. The 50% cancels out the attacker's advantage, and it almost cancels out the 2-level difference between a veteran and an elite. And a demon boil worm is the equivalent to an elite troop. So if I was at liberty to build that, then my Psi Core would really be something. Worm-wise, that is. Worm defense, Psi defense. As probe teams, they're perfectly kick-ass. As is. I have a bad habit of moving things around with 2 clicks. With the mouse menu, right click, move the unit to there. When I'm a bit unfocused, I tend to use it a lot. I'm thinking about other things. I'm thinking about moving things around, then suddenly I'll go into 1-click mode. But there are reasons why the exacting menu mode can be good.
Production complete.
Again, multiplayer with simultaneous turns, things can get a little flaky. It's very idiot-proof if you right-click and say move to there when you're moving things a long distance. When I move things a shorter distance, I try to just use the keypad. Also depends if I'm sitting back from my keyboard and I might be feeling lazy sitting back and just going with full mouse control. Deirdre's chatty. She wants me to deal with dear old Zach.
Production complete. Production
Heckling me for my planned economy and its booming population. I don't usually go in for too much mad growth. I like to have enough mad growth to keep creating cities almost continuously. Believe in the power of more bases. The power of population. If I keep creating more bases, I'll keep getting more drones. If I keep getting more population, I'll keep getting more drones. I prefer to keep getting more bases rather than having big bases. I guess that's fairly obvious looking at this screen, but that is certainly how I roll. Dawn of the supply crawler, dawn of the era of action. Being isolated with Miriam and her penalty, her research penalties. Slow start. Almost turn 110. I don't really have much military. Oh, hello. See, Transcend is no slouch. Zakharov has invaded me and has brought his crappy probe teams with him in order to defend his unit from my probe teams that he knows full well have more than enough cash to bribe him. I haven't even prototyped my first oh so awesome tank yet, but that's alright. I don't think his invasion is particularly huge. He's got one transport with a few guys. I'll just be able to probe team swarm him. Hello, who's this? It's Brother Lau. You come to befriend me, brother? Ah, I seem to have accidentally hatched some worms on top of my dearest buddy Brother Lau. Maybe we should all move away, hey Lau? You should get back on your boat, mate. Those worms don't eat you. Oh well, I can't be responsible for the health and well-being of every Lal who comes my way. He'll just have to fend for himself for a bit. Hello. Not my city. Not my precious 17 with its precious recycling tank. The picturesque recycling tank of base 17 going throughout the land. How dare they? Sakharov and his little probes. Tough little feisty little probes. Who'd have known? Oh well. It's good to have some action and some amusement. Being invaded. Invaded. The horror. My home soil befouled by the University of Planet of all things. Hopefully, that means they're nearby.
Request confirmation.
My favourite possible neighbour to have, University of Planet. My formers keep asking me whether they should stop every time they arrive at a city or go through a city or something. I don't get that in other versions of the game. When I play this game with a Star Trek mod, I get some different characteristics and I'm not sure why. My supply crawlers don't ask me that dumb question when they get to a city. And my very first city in my mod starts as a level 4 city, and I got very used to that, and then in this, I start as a level 1 city. So, I forgot what created that effect as well. But I don't know why my supply crawlers are asking me questions. I mean, I've seen that before, but I thought I switched it off a long time ago. Somehow in this version it's still on. I don't know how to stop it. That's a shame. Well, I'm pushing downwards. It's good to know that that's a coastal city. It's good to have some coastal cities in the south. I really claim all the territory. I don't want some fool thinking that they can build a sea base. on my coastline. Best to prevent such things by hogging all of your own coastline. Not that I would dream of such a thing. Okay, supply crawlers popping out of the woodwork. Gonna get some serious powering up done now.
Production complete.
They thought I was a threat before. Wait until they get a load of what I can do with supply crawlers. I love them. And it's mine at last. Scout rover. Dear me. Tomfoolery. Invaded by a scout rover. How hard are my guys? Dear me. Still, university turns up from over here. I've now got spy boats. So let's go that way. See who we can find. Says I. Cunning plan, my lord. I call it exploration. And it's a little overdue. So, lots of supply crawlers being built. Lots of boaty boat probe teams being built. Not so many regular Psycore being built. That's why I flooded them earlier and built like 30 or 40 or something quite early on. Because I eventually have better things to build. Building my tank Mark 1, I am actually creating instruments of violence. And I'm pumping a bit of minerals into that factory. By pumping some minerals in, I can turn this level 3 city into the equivalent of, I don't know, a level 7 city, I guess, or better. I think I can get the minerals up to around 16 to 20 somewhere before I'll pollute. With my planet penalty, it'll be on the low side. If I went green, I'd be able to intensify the minerals in one base without polluting a bit more. But it's not a big deal.
Drone riot.
I just need to get a decent rate of production happening in my one and only tank factory. I have other techniques for boosting it along. Captured scout rover, very beaten up. It can recuperate, and then down the track I can simply upgrade that into a tank like this one. Any further invasions will be dealt with a bit more harshly. I have a genuine military to throw around. There are, of course, deep SMAC debates to be had about, do you build troops that just have a gun and no armour, and then other troops that just have armour and no gun, and you mix those together? Or do you make the universal troop who has both armour and gun? In the case of my tanks, I tend to go for the latter. It's a case of it's more efficient to build things if they don't have both good armour and a good weapon. If it just has a good weapon,
Request confirmation.
the cost is much lower. It's a multiplier when you start adding extra tricks and good armor. So value for production favours that. Value for upkeep in this no clean reactor world. Value for upkeep says that I want the best possible unit for the one mineral that I'm sacrificing from some town or another, or my one support that I'm sacrificing from some town or another to support that unit. I want it to be as good as possible and worth that support. And because I have a few manufacturing tricks, it's not too big of a deal that they cost a little more. And they do cost a little more. More bases. 23. It's a decent amount of bases. 112 turns into the game. Dropping down base 23. That's a respectable level of expansion. My tech efforts were atrocious. I could have built network nodes earlier and pumped energy into my headquarters earlier to overcome that whole problem. Time for the capture. Let's see, he's got armor and an impactor. He's the equivalent of my tank, but just as a foot soldier, slower moving.
Production complete.
For shame.
Production complete. Production complete.
I think the university is my neighbour. That could be glorious news for Miriam. My word. Being next door to my bestest buddy Zakharov, who's always inventing cool new things he can't wait to tell me about and demonstrate and give me the blueprints of. What a guy. I just love the university. Such a huge fan of science. Nothing I like to see more than other factions forging ahead and getting lots of science for me. Well now, I've got a troop in the south. I've got a tank in the north. I actually have a token military. And I believe I'm now challenging Chairman Yang. Overall system Miriam, yep. I have snuck my way into first overall place with all my hearty stapling. It's the stapling that does it. Nothing people respect more than stapling the brains of your followers. Alright, more tanks. What's the tank called? 3 tank control H. What do I need to do? Control H. Now it's called 5. And it is supported by this little quaint little coastal city here. And if I forget to do that a lot, I'll end up losing minerals at my factory that produces them, because the minerals will be used for upkeep instead of manufacturing and general mineralization. And I don't want that. So it's good to be mindful of your control HSSs. Any kind of factory Control H in its name. Whoa, tidal wave. Okay, well that wasn't a major tidal wave. Wasn't really hanging 10 for particularly long there. So, lots of slurping. This is all minerals from my tank factory. More mines. More spy boats. Oh, hello. Hello, friend. Such a cheap friend. Dear me. It's nothing like a cheap date. What a win. What about this other one up here? It's good to have a shiny blue boat. It's even better to have two shiny blue boats. Lurking offshore, ready to intercept my spy boats. Now, is the mine clear? Yes. No one is slurping from the mine, I shall slurp from the mine.
Production complete.
I don't know how much they've patched this game over the eons, but the original SMAC was very flaky when it came to the mismanagement of the supply crawler. If you go to slurp up something that's already being slurped, either by another crawler or by a city, you've got serious issues. So right before you hit O and slurp, you should always ping into the nearest city and confirm that nobody is using that square. You should also glance down at your list of things on that square and make sure that there is only one supply crawler on the square, so that you don't try and double slurp that way either. If you do in the original game, you will crash. And that's a bad thing in multiplayer games. And I play a lot of multiplayer games, and so you will see a lot of cautious me looking at a city just before I press O on a supply crawler maneuvers. Disband, disband. Supply crawler trick number 2. Trick number 1 is grabbing some goodies and bringing it into a city. That's fairly awesome. Trick number 2. Trick number 2 is you can build a supply crawler in any city, trundle it over into any city, and disband it, and the minerals used to make it will disgorge themselves into whatever's being manufactured there. Not just secret projects, anything being made there.
Request confirmation.
More tanks. If you read the data links, it says that
Complete.
supply crawlers can assist secret projects by unloading their mineral worth into them. But it works with anything. Yes. 2 shiny blue boats. Excellent. Turns out I have a navy. Who knew? I'm gonna have to wrap this 40-odd minute video up, but looks like it's time for some serious dealing with the university action. I like it. Champing at the bit, I'm sure that's a university city right
Production
there.
complete.
Champing to get my probe teams up into Zakharov. Oh yeah. That's about it. $115, turn 115. That will do for now.